everyone.
Morning.
Recording. You are being recorded, so be nice. Hi, Anne.
Hello, how is everybody?
Good. We have a nice group this morning.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I will keep letting folks in. Just fair
Ooh,
warning.
lots of new faces.
Yeah, it's great. It's really nice.
There I am. Always have to fix your hair.
Yes. Or just use the really blurry filter. That's what I like to do. Just like nobody can quite see.
Right.
We'll get started in a minute. We have about, what would you say, Amy? We have registered
About 32.
Yeah, so we'll just give it a few minutes. I think we
Wow.
have about 16. So just as a heads up, you are being recorded right now because we want to make sure that if folks are unable to attend, they can listen at their leisure.
That's good.
Yeah. So welcome. And I'm hopeful that my animals will behave this morning. Give it about a 50% chance. But I know how to mute real quickly. So
It's a talent.
thank you. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate those kind
You're welcome.
Just wait a few more minutes and let folks get in. It's cold this morning. It feels damp.
But it looks very tropical with your lemon tree.
Well, I did intentionally choose this background to look somewhat, I don't know, something else besides what I actually am. Just somewhat frazzled and I'm feeling like I'm kind of behind all the time. I'm sure no one can relate to that at all.
I say join the club.
Yeah. I think it's quite a big club, actually.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of opinions and articles about this, about the, generations younger than mine who, do a better job of like managing their work-life balance. And I'm hoping to learn that. But right now, what I'm really learning is how to optimize Zoom to look like you're calm.
It's great.
All right, just a few more minutes to let a few more folks in. Thank you all for your patience. How many of you were at yesterday's session for Guilford Foundation? Okay, so Callie, it's going to be quite similar, but I'm going to say Branford a lot more. So thank you for your patience. But they are quite similar, although somewhat different. All right. I think the entries are slowing down. So I'll get started just to recognize and honor your time with us today. So I'm Liza Jansen Petra, lemon tree grower. Just kidding. It's actually my partner's talents. And I'm the executive director of the Guilford. Well, that's true. That's not untrue statement. But for today, I'm the executive director of the Branford Community Foundation. So a couple of things. If you aren't muted already, if you could mute yourself so that it's less distracting for folks, I would appreciate it. We are recording this session, so what you say is in recording forever. You know what they say about the internet. The reason we're recording it is that some folks are unable to attend this morning, and we just want to make sure that the information is available for anyone who is interested. I'm very pleased to be here with members of my staff. Amy Paris is our administrative assistant. She's the one who sent the emails around. And then Jen Mullett is our program director, and she is really the boss of the grants management process. So I'll pretend like I know what I'm talking about, but when you have the real questions, I'll kick it over to Jen. So that's great. We also have one of our board members, Amy Etzel, who's on. She's actually the chair of our Community Investment Committee. So she leads the board and the volunteer review of all of the applications. And you'll be hearing from her later this morning. So I'm going to begin the presentation with some slides. Jen also has some slides when we get to the grant portal process. Amy will send out these slides to all recipients after the session. If that is something that is of interest to you, you can delete it if it's not. And I will get started. If you have questions during any part of the presentation, just use the option below to raise your hand. You can also drop information into the chat, and I'll be sure that someone is catching that and talking about it. But I'm just really grateful that you are all here. We have about 23 participants, which is really wonderful. All right, so unless there are administrative questions, I'll just go ahead and jump right in. She says confidently as she tries to figure it out. Okay, here we go. All right, so you should see the slideshow. I'm just going to put it into, if I can, a slideshow situation. So welcome everyone. We've done the introductions. So I'm just going to provide a little bit of background on what we do, our purpose at the Branford Community Foundation, to provide some information for you as you're thinking about crafting your application, to ensure that what you're presenting to us about your organization really fits into the areas that we've described as areas of importance. So our mission is to improve the well-being of the Branford community by connecting people who care with causes that matter now and for generations to come. So we do that by raising private dollars from generous community members and folks who care about Branford, investing those assets, and then using a portion of the income back out into the community through this process, our annual grant making process, scholarships, leadership activities, and other convening. We're unique because we're permanent. We do not spend all of the assets that we have or that we take in, because our goal is to provide a permanent source of funding forever. That's also important because we really view these processes, like our application process for grants and or sponsorships, others, as an opportunity to build relationships with those organizations that are serving our Branford community. So there may be years where you get more or less or none of your award, but the goal is for us to be able to support your work and the importance into the community year after year. And so it's important for us that we remain a partner with you and build good relationships. So I hope that's clear throughout the presentation. A few years ago, we actually the board identified a value statement to provide sort of a lens by which we operate and reach our mission. We felt this was important to sort of better articulate our intent and our values for the work that we're doing across all of our pillars. So our value statement is that the Branford Community Foundation is dedicated to our core values of integrity, inclusiveness, responsiveness, and accountability. So that's our goal. That's our purpose, our values, how we accomplish our work. I hope that makes sense. Moving on, just to provide, oops, that is not what I meant to do. Just to give you a sense of what we did last year during this annual grant making process, and setting aside for a minute, another big activity that we took on last year was the American Rescue Plan Act funding, which many of you applied for, and we were very, very honored to be able to provide that conduit from the town of Branford to provide some resources to all of you, or to those of you who applied and were successful to get some funding for the impact that COVID had on your work. That took up a lot of our time and energy last year. But in addition to doing that process, which we distributed about we made recommendations for about $400,000 that was distributed by the town. We also did our annual grant process, which is the process that we're talking about right now. And we think it's important to give you a sense of what we did last year, just so you sort of get a flavor of our actions. So this isn't necessarily how it's going to be this year, but it just is an opportunity for you to understand sort of the history of our work. So last year we received 34 applications. Of those, 25 were fully or partially funded. We often get questions, will you reject an application if it's asking for too much money? And the answer is usually no. We would, if it's a worthy application that has demonstrated impact and worthiness into the community, but we don't have the resources to support it in full, we will provide a partial funding for that. And without exception, organizations in the past have accepted that without sort of inability to do the work going forward. That's another, I don't want to complicate things, but the answer is if you ask for $5,000 and our resources only allow for 2,500 for this particular purpose, we will go with the 2,500 and not just reject outright. So I hope that's helpful. To give you a sense of the range, so this should help you think about how much to ask for, which is another question we often get. Our awards last year ranged from $1,000 to $10,000. If you all could mute, if you're not muted, that would be great, just because I get distracted. So the average grant award, which should also help you think about it, was $4,250. So while they range from 1 to 10, the average hovers around 4,000. And we received one emergent grant application, which was outside our annual process. And I'll talk about that process a little bit later. So that should give you sort of a sense of the volume of work. I also want to talk a little bit about how that was distributed in relation to our priorities and issue areas. So this is how it breaks down. We are a community foundation, so our purpose is really to address all of the needs within the community, which, as you can imagine, can be quite challenging. And that's why we have priorities. So last year, youth took up about 31%. Mental health took up about 10% of our funding. Joy, I kind of like that. Joy is really joy and culture. So it's like arts, theater, other things that spark joy in the community, because clearly we all need that. Disparately impacted, it was about 3%. So we're very interested in serving organizations that have maybe not received the kind of funding from us in the past. This is a reflection of our work around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So 3% of our funding went to initiatives that qualify under that or fall into that. Basic needs is one of our biggest. So basic needs is food, shelter, emergency financial assistance. And then other is a variety of things. It can be seniors, it could be animals, other. So it's this other bucket that doesn't quite fit in a neat box. So this is, again, I'm not sure what it will look, what our priority pie chart will look like this year. But again, this should give you a flavor of the areas which we fund and how it sort of settles out. All right, so let's talk about this year. So our budget for the entire investment is $152,000 to be invested in the community. Now, as I mentioned, we also have scholarships, we have designated funds, and we have donor advised funds. So, I didn't put the amount of designated. Anyway, if you can do arithmetic, you can figure out what that number is. So when we take out our scholarships that we give through the Branford High School, our designated funds, those are funds, those that we have that a donor established to fund a specific organization. And then donor advised funds are a different kind of fund where a donor has indicated they want to donate the gift, but want to have some involvement in that. So when we take away those investments that we also do in addition to our annual grant making process, it leaves us about a budget of $93,000. So that is the budget to which you are applying. And again, if you have questions as I move along, feel free to raise your hand. All right, so for the timeline, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Amy Etzel, who is the chair of the Community Investment Committee. So Amy.
Yeah, thanks, Liza. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. As Liza mentioned, I am a member of the Branford Community Foundation Board, and I lead the committee that will be reviewing all the applications. And we're just so excited to have the interest and have you all here today. So just a quick overview of what the review process looks like. Obviously, as you know, applications are due on March 15th. After that point, we've convened a committee of people that includes a few members of the Branford Community Foundation, as well as a few community members within the town of Branford. We tried to recruit people that represent a variety of sectors within Branford to kind of give a nice foundational knowledge of what exists within Branford and what some of the areas of need are. And so those people represent, healthcare, behavioral health, finance, legal, arts, and so we have a nice, well-rounded group of people. What happens is we will meet as a group over the course of, I think, 5 or 6 weeks to review the applications. What that looks like is every committee member will be assigned, depending on the number of applications we receive, will be assigned to be a primary reader to a specific application. We'll receive, again, depending on how many we receive, every committee member will be assigned 3 to 4 or 5. And then every application also has a secondary reader. And then we will meet over the course of those 5 to 6 weeks. And the primary and secondary reader will give a summary to the group of what the application looks like, what it is you are requesting money for, how it will impact the people of Branford. And then we will make a recommendation for either full, partial, or no funding based on that review. Beyond that, so then essentially, as Liza mentioned, Jennifer is the one that really she's the boots on the ground, taking notes of all of our conversations, and she does a fabulous job of keeping track of what our recommendations are. And then our final meeting is when we meet to say, okay, this X amount of money has been requested. When we had our conversations, that adds up to X amount of money. We have this amount of money to actually offer, and then we kind of finagle the numbers to make sure that everything that deserves funding does receive some, and we may or may not have to adjust the numbers of what we originally discussed accordingly, depending on the total bucket. And then we will be notified of the amount that we've decided to award by the end of May. I
Amy,
see a question.
That was fabulous.
Oh, well, thanks, Liza.
And there is a question. Is the budget more or less than the grant funds in 2023? It's about the same, I think. I think it may be a touch more. I'm not sure. Does that help? It better be growing, because that's, that's our whole goal.
If not, we'll get the board members on it to make
That's
sure
right.
we get more for
That's
next
right.
year.
Awesome.
But I did just kind of want to give a little bit of insight into sort of what we as board members look like when we're reading these applications. We really want you all to highlight, a lot of the organizations that apply for funding exist and serve people, not just in Branford, outside, it may be the shoreline, it may be the greater New Haven County area, but it is really important for us to recognize how and in what way you do impact Branford, even if it includes other people beyond that. So definitely call that piece out. As we are the Branford Community Foundation, our main mission is to elevate the nonprofits that serve the Branford residents, if that also may include others, but make sure that's called out. And then just be as specific as possible. We really, we want to know how you're going to be using this money, for what purpose, the timeline, etc. And then also don't be scared, or, if committee members come back and ask you follow-up questions, that's just us trying to do our due diligence and make sure we understand. So please don't be miffed in any way if we come back at you with questions.
Or if we don't.
Or if we don't. Exactly. That's true. It's a good point.
That was terrific, Amy. Thank you so much. It's a good process. It's hard, but we take it very seriously.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about what we are able to fund and what we target to fund. So we are able to give grants to 501c3 not-for-profit organizations and certain governmental organizations. So that's what the IRS allows us to do. So no individuals, no businesses. And governmental agencies include the town social service organization, so community services, and I always forget their new name. counseling and community services with Peter. Or a school, for instance. So those are the kinds of governmental agencies this refers to. We cannot pay for programs or services that have occurred in the past. So don't come to us with a request for a program you did last year or before. This is future facing work that we're looking to invest in. We welcome applications from previous grantees. Again, as I said at the top of this conversation, we really value the relationships that we're trying to build with you. It doesn't mean that you'll get an award every single year if the priorities shift or if resources don't allow for that. But so nothing's guaranteed, but absolutely try each year. We don't do like a 2 years on and then 1 year off kind of a cycle intentionally. And then the only other piece is all final reports, if you have received funding, need to be submitted in advance of the application. I think the deadline was February 1st. Jen, you probably got multiple emails from us regarding that. If you haven't completed it yet, no worries. Just try to get it to us because again, we do like to know what you did with the donated funds that we are able to distribute. Jen, did you have a comment you're going to add to that?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I do know that I did receive several emails from folks that weren't able to submit their final report. So if you weren't able to, and I haven't responded to you, just if you don't mind just pinging me again. I was out of town for a couple of weeks and I know the deadline was while I was away, which was bad planning on my part.
Never again.
Just feel free to reach out and we'll get it sorted out.
Oh, and that actually jogs a question that came up in a previous session, which is if you received ARPA funding, this does not mean we need your ARPA report at this time. This is just competitive grants from 2023, not ARPA funding. All right, I see another chat question. Can application be made for programs that will occur before the date? No, that's just not, we just don't do past events. So unfortunately, no, although you could potentially, it looks like you're with Arts and Ideas, you could apply for a sponsorship and I'll talk a little bit about that later. So no.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. I hate saying no. Except to my children, then I'm fine saying no. All right, so I talked a little bit about like what we're allowed to fund. But our purpose, what we want to fund is our main purpose, as Amy said, is to find grants that enhance the quality of life in Branford. So let me be very, very clear. The committee takes very seriously the impact on Branford residents and people who work, live, and play here. So if you are applying for funding, you do not have to have your organization stationed in Branford, but you do need to talk about the impact that the grant award will have on people who live, work, and play in Branford. Again, we are a micro-focused foundation, so we are really hyper-focused on our geography. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. And it doesn't, again, you can serve the entire state of Connecticut, but for us, we really want to understand how you're impacting our small community. That's one of the areas that makes us unique. You should have, of course, address a need or concern. What are you trying to do with this funding? We are happy to build on your organization's strengths and assets. So it doesn't have to be a new program. It can be a program that's highly successful and very impactful towards the population that you serve. Build the capacity of organizations. So again, this is all language around operational support. We do support operational support. We recognize that, organizations need to be strong and supported in order to do the work that you're doing. We are very big on collaboration. So please talk to us about how you're cooperating with other organizations, be it, businesses, town agencies, other community organizations. We really like to know that we're all working together to address the needs in Branford. If you have a grant that will help you secure other resources, let us know. So sometimes, organizations will get a very big matching grant from a federal source or state source. Let us know, because if we know that our 4,000 will help you unlock an additional 4,000 from another source. That's great information for us to have. We're also happy to support infrastructure within the organization. Again, that goes to the to the value on operating support. Okay, and so then we also have our priorities. So these priorities should reflect what you saw in the pie chart. Our priorities have not changed this year from last year, so we are still focused on basic needs, really helping those in our community who are at risk for falling through the cracks. We are also interested in supporting those organizations I mentioned before that are disparately impacted. So organizations that potentially don't necessarily always receive funding, or who we haven't supported before. Mental health continues to be just a major factor, particularly among youth, but also among all of us. So we are very keen on making sure that folks in our community have the resources that they need for mental health support. Here's that one about joy. So programs that create joy in the Branford community. Again, that's arts, culture, civic engagement, etc. Child and youth development services. I'm very interested in making sure that our youth, our kids, have the services they need in order to be successful as they grow up. And again, striving for high impact in the Branford community. If you leave with nothing from what we're talking about here today, just remember, we really want to understand the impact on Branford. That is one of the big questions that comes up. All right. So I talked about other opportunities for funding. So this is our major grant cycle. This is our one annual grant cycle. But we recognize that some things happen during the course of the year. You have an emergency, you have, a boiler breaks, something happens that you could not have anticipated. A new program opportunity comes up with an organization you're just learning about, and it fits a critical need. If something like that comes up that you could not have anticipated, that's the opportunity to think about our emergent grant needs. So we do not have a massive budget for that. It's usually under about $10,000. But if something comes up, contact Jen, let us know, see what the budgets are, and see if we can help. We also are very fortunate to partner with GSB on sponsorships. So we have 30,000, well, less now, but we started with $30,000 for this year to distribute in sponsorship awards. We have 3 deadlines during the year. The first was in January. The next is April 15th. And then the last one is July 15th. So sponsorship awards are really geared towards one-time events. These are opportunities for the Guilford Foundation and GSB to potentially get some marketing recognition. This is sort of less focused on services and more on enlightened interest, if that makes sense. So opportunities for us to support a gala, a run, a golf tournament, a series of events. We know that you do lots of different kinds of fundraising. So this is that pattern for that. So those deadlines are April 15th and July 15th. And again, because we're hyper-focused on Branford, when you're filling out those applications, be sure to talk about the impact in our community. All right, and from here, I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going to turn it over to Jen, who's going to take you through the online grant center. So Jen, I'm going to allow multiple participants. There you go. All right, it's all you. Well, it'd be helpful if you weren't muted, but.
Hey, do you want to hear me too?
A lot to ask this morning.
I assume everybody can see the slides. Okay, so I'm just going to go briefly through how to access the online grant center. I think a lot of you have done it before, but I see a lot of new faces, so it's very exciting. You can always get to the online grant center and the application by going through our website. So if you go to the Branford Community Foundation website and go under the page that's apply for a grant and click on that blue online grant center button at the bottom. It'll take you to the portal. Okay. Once you're in the portal, it'll ask you to log on. If you've already been through the process and you've already have the same existing person, existing credentials, you can just go ahead and log on. If you're not sure, or if the person that's filling out the application has changed recently, just shoot me an email and let's just double check it before you log on and create a new account. And that's really primarily because we just want to make sure that each organization has a specific account, and so that we can see the historical records and there's not multiple applications. Sometimes it's happened in the past where different people from an organization are working on an application and they're working on the same application, but it's in two different places. So we just want to make sure everyone's working on the correct application and just one. So as I said, just feel free to contact me if you're unsure about that, or if you need to change who the primary lead person is on your application. And then if you haven't been on before, there's some great applicant tutorials that you can see in the gray box on the right-hand side. They are really quick. If you watch the videos, it's less than 10 minutes, and they really walk you through all the steps. I find them very helpful, and I actually still refer to them occasionally myself. So once you have logged on, you will land on your applicant dashboard. And on the applicant dashboard, you'll see at the top, I've circled it, there's a apply button. If you click on that apply button, it will take you to all the open active applications. So right now it would be this process and also sponsorships you would be able to see. So just while we're on this page, you'll see it as active requests and historical requests. Any active requests that you have that you're working on will show up here. So if you have a sponsorship that you've applied for already, or you have outstanding report due, it'll show up under the active requests. And from there, you can click on, it'll either say view application. This one says view application because I've already submitted it. Or it'll say edit application, in which case you can go in and edit. But before you even get to that, if you don't have any active requests, it'll just say apply. You don't have any active requests. Would you like to apply? And then you can just click on the apply button and it'll take you to the next page, which is the apply page. And you can see everything that Liza and we've just gone through is listed here. So all the information about the timetable, what is considered for grants, how to contact us, all that information is here. You can read through it again at your leisure. You can scroll down to the bottom, and if you want to see a application before you go into the actual application and start to apply, you can do that, and there's a preview button. But on this page, you would click apply, and that's going to take you to the application. And just wanted to point out a couple of things once you get into the application. This is a completed application, so it doesn't show up on here, but the first thing that will come up will be instructions. And some helpful hints. That just gives you an overview of how the system works as far as saving the application as you walk through it. Word limits, the application itself has logic. So depending on what kind of application funding that you're looking for, if you're looking for operating funding versus if you're looking for project funding, different questions will appear. So it just explains a little bit about how the application itself works. If you would like a list of the questions, I know some people prefer to work offline. If you click the button in the the right-hand corner that says question list, that will supply a PDF file to you that you can print off, and it has all the questions that are in the application. It will give you all the questions. So if you're applying for operating support, there's some different questions that have to get answered. So you just have to make sure that you may not have to answer some of the questions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So just make sure when you look at it that you know what you're supposed to be answering. I don't want anyone to be overwhelmed with questions that they don't have to answer. And then when you can also, once you start working on your application, a collaborate button will come up. It's on the top right-hand corner. That allows you to add another user from your organization. So if you have someone who's doing specifically the budgeting or may have access to the 501c3 and you need them to be able to access the application, you can invite them into the application. So they will be added as a user at that point and they will be able to edit if you give them the right to do that. Once you have completed your application and you've submitted it, a couple other buttons will pop up. The application packet. If you click on that, it'll give you a PDF that has all of your questions and your answers to the questions. So you can print that off and keep it in your files if you want a paper copy. The document viewer will show you any forms that you have uploaded to the system. Like if you've uploaded your 501c3, you can see that it's there by clicking on the document viewer. And then the most important thing is once you've finished the application, make sure you hit the submit button down at the end of the page. Once it's submitted, you should receive an email from, it'll come from the Branford Community Foundation, just saying that we have received it. If you don't see it, check in your junk file. And then if you still don't see it, then just reach out to make sure that we've got it. And you won't actually be able to submit if there's any questions that are required that you haven't answered. It will not let you submit. So once you've submitted it, you've answered all the questions that we've asked you to answer, and it's in our file, and it'll be ready for review by our committee. So that is the overall very brief walkthrough of the site. If anybody has any questions.
Do you want to talk a little bit about saving your work?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I didn't mention that. The site will automatically save, I believe it's like every 5 characters or 6 characters or something like that. So if you're working on it and you walk away from it and you come back later, it'll still be there. There is the save application button at the bottom because I know I like to hit a save button occasionally. It makes me feel better about things. Wow, I was just thinking about whether I could apply that to my life in general.
Let's not get too metaphysical.
That got very deep all of a sudden. But yeah, if you want to hit the save application button, you can, but it will automatically save. And then if you go out of the site and you come back later, all the work that you've done will be there. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And I just want to say also that Jen is very good at responding to any questions that you might have. She is the real expert on the technical side of this as well. So don't hesitate to ask if you have questions as you're completing the application. What I would say is try to maybe start your application earlier so that you're not waiting until the very last day or the very last week, because we often, as you can imagine, we get a lot of questions at like 11:59 p.m. on March 15th. So if you can do it a little bit before that, that would be very, very helpful. All right, so oh dear, hold on, and look how fast we go through it again. Boop. Okay. So, so we've talked about how to apply, what happens, how our application process works, how our grant management process works. So if you are awarded a grant, we really view it as a partnership. So we'd like to celebrate the work that you're doing. And we also are hopeful that you also celebrate that work as well. If challenges arise while you're, implementing or, putting, like sometimes things happen, pandemics happen, staff changes happen. I can't think of a time where we've taken any grant back, but we have definitely worked with organizations to help them use the funding towards their, original purpose. And that can even be if you get funding for a program and suddenly that's not the focus anymore. Just call us, talk to us. I do not recommend that you move forward without speaking to us. That we really do like to be on the front end of things. But anyway, we really make it a focus to have the influence. I'm sorry, to have the awards that we have given the investments that we are fortunate enough to distribute to you through the generosity of our donors, we really want to make sure that it's doing what you said you were doing and it's meeting the needs that you want it to meet. And then ultimately, I hope that made sense. In other words, just work with us. We're not, you know, we're not a, we want to work with you. And finally, at the end of the year, at the end of the program, let us know how it did, grant report. So I am going to stop sharing. We have some questions. I don't think I have any more fun slides. Nope, questions and feedback. Look at me. So we have some questions in the chat that I'm going to,
I think I've been trying to answer them.
oh, you're so good. All right. So
Whether it's better to email me or call me with questions, I would say if you could just send me an email with the topic so I have a chance. If it's a technical question, I have a chance to go look into the system and get you an answer. If it's a question about what kind of application you should be applying for, we can set up a time to call and have a conversation about that. And then Musical Art Society, we have not received an application from them, so you can set up a new account. Yes, I will. Is it possible to undo after auto saved? I think if you just go back and delete whatever it was that you were working on, that's kind of the same thing. If you want to just delete the whole application and start over, there is a button to say abandon request or abandon request, and you can just abandon it and start over again if you need to.
And building off of that, so you can edit and continue to work on your application until you hit that submit application. Are you sure you want to submit it? And then you submit it. What happens if they submit and they want to go back and change something?
So I would say the best thing to do is to just contact me. We have had that situation in the past where we've just added a note to an application if something has come up or changed or since the application was submitted, because it is a period of time, about a month or so from the time that we receive the application until decisions are made. So we can certainly I can add things on my end to the application.
Perfect.
And that way also we know it's been added and I can share it with the committee.
Thanks, Jen. And you did put your email right into the chat. It's also on our website. It's very straightforward, jmullet@branfordcommunityfoundation.org, just like Amy is a.paris@branfordcommunityfoundation.org. Weirdly, I don't have an email. No, I'm just kidding. Mine is Petra.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. I certainly. Oh, I love getting emails. I'm just kidding. So that is sort of the end of the Dog and Pony Show. We're happy to take any other questions, either now or if you want to sort of marinate and think on a lot of this information, happy to come back with any thoughts or suggestions you might have. As I mentioned at the beginning, Amy will distribute the slides, both the slideshow that I put together as well as the slides that Jen did on the grant management system out, so you can really look at those and see what other see if that helps you answer your question or if you need to come back with some further clarification. Oh, you're welcome, Mary. If there are no other questions, you can raise your hand. I just want to take an opportunity to just thank you all for the work that you do in Branford and for our communities and outside of Branford. You know, we feel very fortunate to be in the position that we are to help actually make a difference in our communities, but we recognize that it's really your organizations that are making the real difference. We're just a facilitator there. So thank you very much. I hope this was useful and helpful. Very grateful for all of you. Thanks to Amy for volunteering on the board. And if there are no other questions, we'll give you back, as they'd like to say, 16 minutes of your day. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. And if you want an access, I'm going to stop recording now so you can be fresh if you want to.